We need to talk about the junk signs being used to ignore 911 calls, neo-Nazis demonstrating outside of a Broadway play, and the absolute clown of a juror in the criminal probe of Trump and his allies. So we're going to talk about all that on today's brand new Sunday Philip DeFranco show, so welcome back, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. Starting with the fact that a juror in the criminal probe of Trump and his allies may have seriously fucked shit up, all in the pursuit of 15 minutes of fame. Also, for some background, this is relating to the investigation into attempts to overturn the election in Georgia. As part of that probe, which is widely seen as one of the biggest legal threats to Trump, a special grand jury was convened. That jury spending 8 whole months investigating the matter to make a report and recommendations that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will then use to decide whether or not to bring charges against anyone, or because the special grand jury itself does not have the power to bring indictments. And actually, until recently, we had very little information about the contents of the jury's report or what recommendations they made. Though notably, a judge did release part of their report last week, which showed that the grand jury recommended charges against 1 or more witnesses who they believe committed perjury during their testimonies. But it was unclear how many people that included, which witnesses, or if other charges had been recommended in relation to the violations of state election laws, which really is the crux of this whole case. The thing is though, that changed this week. We have gotten a lot of information. And in fact, maybe too much information from the foreperson of the special grand jury, a 30-year-old woman named Emily Kohrs. Or with the jury now dissolved, jurors are able to speak to the press, though they're unable to share many aspects of the case. And Kohrs has been shockingly quick to seize onto that opportunity and the enticing spotlight that it provides. But they're going on an absolutely bizarre media tour over the last few days and speaking to multiple outlets. And understand, this whole tour has been absolutely wild for a number of reasons. The first, at the very top, is that Kohrs has been widely criticized for how casually she's been talking about this whole thing and almost seems like she's having this kind of weird, twisted fun with all of it, with many pointing to this clip of an interview she did with CNN where she's discussing the number of people who have been charged. Or we're talking about massive revelations that literally haven't been publicly discussed until now. And the entire time she's being like weird and giddy and coy, like she knows someone has a crush on you, but she's not gonna tell.
There are indictments recommended, of course. Is it more than 12 people? Is it more than 20 people?
I think if you look at the page numbers of the report, there's about 6 pages in the middle that got cut out. Allow for spacing. It's not a short list.
Not a short list. Would you characterize it as 20-ish people?
I can't say I counted.
Okay. More than a dozen, though, I think I'd heard you say in another interview?
I believe so. That's probably a good assumption.
Now, on the note of Trump, she did tease out more in an interview with the New York Times where, when asked if jurors had recommended the former president, she responded, "You're not going to be shocked. It's not rocket science." And adding, "It's not going to be some giant plot twist. You probably have a fair idea of what may be in there. I'm trying very hard to say it delicately." What the fuck is wrong with you? How is this joke of a human being connected to this case? And understand, these are only little bits. This is not where the insanity ends. There were also a bunch of other absolutely wild moments in other interviews.
Did you personally want to hear from the former president?
I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, "Do you solemnly swear?" And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome moment. I can see how trying to get the former president to come talk to us would have been a year in negotiation by itself. I'd be fascinated by what he said, but do you think he would have come in and said anything groundbreaking or just the same kind of thing we've heard? So at some point, you don't need to hear 50 people say the same thing. You know what I mean? At some point, you kind of start to get the gist. My coolest moment was shaking Rudy Giuliani's hand. That was really cool for me. I made a point of stopping them and being like, "Wait, before we go back to this, can I shake your hand? Because this an honor to meet the guy." It was really neat for me.
And so with all this, we've seen so many people criticizing her, saying she clearly doesn't take this seriously, with one news anchor painting an absolutely fucking bonkers picture of this woman and how she's handled herself throughout this incredibly important process.
Okay. What we have in these interviews is a window into the thought process of a special grand jury that heard evidence in perhaps the most legally perilous investigation of a former president in American history. A special grand jury led by someone who has never before participated in the most basic part of our democracy, voting. Someone who, during proceedings, drew sketches of witnesses like Senator Lindsey Graham and former Trump aide Mark Short, and who swore in at least one witness. I am not kidding here, holding a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles popsicle stick.
But, and this is a key thing, her actions both in and out of the courtroom aren't just notable because they're so damn weird. They very well could have very significant ramifications, with experts saying it is very, very unusual for grand juries to speak to the press, period, much less in the totally flippant way she did.
This is a horrible idea, and I guarantee you that prosecutors are wincing watching her go on this. It's a prosecutor's nightmare. Mark my words, Donald Trump's team is going to make a motion, if there's an indictment, to dismiss that indictment based on grand jury impropriety.
But this mental child's selfish decision to try and milk this for all it's worth could literally jeopardize the whole case. It's already being reported that lawyers close to several witnesses are preparing to use Kohrs' remarks to try and quash any possible indictments in Georgia on the grounds that her comments will taint any charges in the investigation. And beyond that, not only could her actions put this case in jeopardy, but they could also hurt future cases. Right? According to ABC News, Kohrs appears to have stopped short of explicitly violating the special grand jury's charter that prohibits her from sharing any information about their deliberations. But experts agreed that her public remarks could be cited in future litigation, possibly as evidence of bias in a motion to dismiss a case or in a motion to change venues. And beyond all that, her comments also simply undermine public confidence in the judicial process, with the outlet's chief legal analyst explaining she shouldn't be doing this. It isn't helpful to the perception of the objectivity of the criminal justice system, and it starts to feel like she's putting pressure on the district attorney to actually move forward with charges. Which is why I want to end this story to say to Kohrs, because I know you're watching, if you're acting like this on TV, don't be stupid. I guess it's a little too late for that. And then, anti-Semitism is rising in the US, and the latest example is this really disturbing neo-Nazi protest outside of a Broadway show this week. The musical is called Parade, and it just started previews in New York City, and it's about the true story of a Jewish factory manager named Leo Frank, who was convicted of murdering a 13-year-old girl in Georgia in 1913, and after his sentence was commuted, he was murdered by a lynch mob. With a consensus among historians being that Frank was falsely accused of the crime and that the trial was heavily influenced by false testimony and anti-Semitic media coverage. And in fact, he received a posthumous pardon back in 1986, and his case and the coverage around it actually led to the creation of the Anti-Defamation League. And Ben Platt, who won a Tony Award for Dear Evan Hansen, is playing Frank in the show, which had its first preview showing on Tuesday night, which a group of neo-Nazis stood outside of telling audiences they were supporting the story of a pedophile and saying other gross and violent things about Jewish people, even handing anti-Semitic flyers out to people attending the show. And as far as the group, they've actually been identified to be part of an organization that I won't say the name of because they don't deserve the attention, but notably, they are known to be the largest membership-based neo-Nazi group in the country, with one person who attended the show and witnessed the protest describing the demonstration as absolutely wild and genuinely scary. Protests that have been strongly condemned, including by the producers of the musical, who released a statement saying, if there is any remaining doubt out there about the urgency of telling this story in this moment in history, the vileness on display last night should put it to rest. We stand by the valiant Broadway cast that brings this vital story to life each night. With Ben Platt also taking to Instagram to talk to his followers about what happened.
And it was definitely very ugly and scary, but a wonderful reminder of why we're telling this particular story.
Because this comes at a time, like I said, where anti-Semitism is on the rise in the US. And you have people across the country, whether it be some no-name bigoted fuck to the likes of Kanye West, sparking hateful incidents across the country. You got motherfuckers out in the world like more concerned that there's a book in a child's school that mentions like history or gay people rather than fucking Nazis. We're seeing the same anti-Semitism that Parade is about still infiltrating the streets of New York in 2023. And then, so data brokers create shadow profiles on you that include a frightening amount of personal details. These insights are then used by scammers, total strangers, insurance companies, banks, businesses, and even the government. I mean, it's so annoying how companies collect, aggregate, and trade your personal information without you knowing it. Data brokers, marketing brokers, financial information brokers all sell this information to third parties, or they use it for themselves. And the process of deleting that information feels like a job that never ends, but thanks to a fantastic sponsor of the show, Incogni, they'll do it for you. There are data brokers selling financial information such as credit scores to banks and credit companies, leading to increased insurance rates and loan denials that can directly affect you. And nobody wants their home address out there. Info like your name, email, home address, social security number, it gets collected and sold over and over again. It can feel out of control. So enlisting Incogni to take on the process of removing your data off the market, it just makes sense. To protect your privacy, and go to incogni.com/DeFranco, and the first 100 people to use code DeFranco will get 20% off of Incogni. That's incogni.com/DeFranco, and use code DeFranco to get your personal data off the market. And then be careful when you're calling 911, because what you say and how you say it could actually help land you behind bars. Or at least that's what this piece from ProPublica is revealed. Right? Because at the center of all this, you have a man by the name of Tracy Harpster and his so-called 911 call analysis. Harpster was a police detective from a small town, and after attending a course at the FBI, he decided to pursue a graduate degree. And during that time, he published a paper claiming they could figure out if someone was guilty of a crime based on their 911 call, which was then later turned into a study alongside two colleagues. So that sounds pretty fantastical, right? Almost like those channels on YouTube that claim to look at police interrogations and show the signs of someone being deceptive. But here's the thing, as fun as many of those channels are, the reality is there's almost no way to consistently tell if someone's lying just based on their body language. But that doesn't stop so-called experts like Harpster from thinking it could apply to vocal cues, and there's even a whole 911 cop scale checklist and other training that, when combined together, allegedly gave a better idea if the caller is behind the crime. These include things like giving out too much information in a call, an alleged sign that you're trying to waste time. Although at the same time, you're fucked if you only answer what's asked, right? Too much information, guilty. Too little, guilty. Asking huh to a dispatcher's question, you're the goddamn killer. Or let's say you're like now 24-year-old Riley Spittler who screamed, "Oh my God, my life is over," on a 911 call after accidentally shooting his brother. Or because a detective trained by Harpster concluded that it was too much of a me mindset and that it was intentional, landing Spittler in prison for murder for years. Though he ultimately managed to appeal the case to just manslaughter due to the accidental nature of the killing and the fact that this analysis is shoddy at best. Since then, Harpster has claimed to have expanded his research, gotten better data, and uses this to go around the country teaching his methods to hundreds of police departments, often for a hefty fee. Right, so a guy with very little scientific background claiming that he can do this would normally be grounds for skepticism. But in the world of law enforcement, they will cling to junk science left and right if it helps get a conviction. Right, remember, for a while, polygraph tests were lauded as the next big thing. Now, they're not even admissible as evidence in court. However, Harpster's methodologies got a big boost when the FBI featured his research shortly after he wrote it in a bulletin they sent to law enforcement across the country. With one of the issues being that paper wasn't even peer-reviewed at that time. Also, Harpster and his colleagues used just 100 sample calls to make their data, and then they tested their method on that same data, something known as double dipping. And making matters worse is the fact that 100 sample calls isn't enough to factor in things like callers' race, economic group, where they grew up, whether they're neurodivergent, and so on. All of those play major factors in how people speak. Now, a thing that should be noted, this isn't exactly a major problem if they also followed the rest of standard academic procedure, like having other researchers conduct similar studies. But after the FBI prematurely sent out the research, the genie was out of the bottle and Harpster was off to the races. He works on consulting police forces and prosecutors around the US to try and get people behind bars based on their 911 calls. And although most law enforcement officials claim, hey, this is just one single tool in our toolbox, that appears to contradict multiple emails and court cases that ProPublica looked at, where they found that the only real evidence prosecutors had was Harpster's cheat sheet. Now, some of those cases have since been successfully appealed, but the fact that it was even allowed at all is pretty appalling, as is the number of prosecutors and officers who swear by his work. And one of the things here is that we're likely going to see an uptick in convictions that use this method because it took years for it to get off the ground and into courtrooms. There wasn't enough precedent to bring it into trials as evidence to be examined, and Harpster didn't want to take the stand himself, likely over fears of being debunked and ruining any chances of precedent being set. So that's when his training efforts really took off. He began training so-called experts, and prosecutors slowly began introducing it into courts, right? Not as evidence, but rather part of an officer's experience and training, which means it shouldn't be considered as strongly by a jury, but it also means it's susceptible to less scrutiny. Or as one prosecutor instructed, have the officers testify why this 911 call is inconsistent with an innocent caller, consistent with someone with a guilty mind. Harpster would add the prosecutors should reinforce all the incriminating sections of the call. Another prosecutor writing omissions, lack of emotion, over-emotion, failure to act appropriately. Juries love it. It's easy for them to understand. And this is even before it's been recognized as science by many courts, and it's still swaying juries. But eventually, after enough of that was done, it helped establish the missing precedent that was needed in order to start introducing its analysis as true evidence with experts. It's kind of like how things that aren't true just become facts. Take the idea that Napoleon was short. Turns out he wasn't. It started as propaganda before being quoted in academic sources, and the next thing you know, boom, it's a fact. Napoleon's a tiny dude. And it takes a ton of work to undo that. But again, with what we're talking about today, there is a serious lack of scientific evidence to back any of this up. Even one of the researchers responsible has been so wary of how this has been used that they've distanced themselves from the entire work. And since Harpster's study, others have been done, including 2 by the FBI, and none of them back his claims. The FBI even saying that the indicators were so inconsistent that they often went in the opposite direction of what was previously found, with the FBI even trying to send bulletins to law enforcement warning them about Harpster's work. There's also now a study in the works looking at 1,000 911 calls, and they've asked Harpster for his data, a common thing in the academic world. But shocker, he has refused, claiming that other academics are going to steal his work. And in general, we just have a fucked situation. Because if the authorities getting called or investigating or using this junk science, they're going to get a result that may not actually be true. And now, with more and more people learning about this junk science, they are going to be scared to call the authorities because, oh my God, is my call going to be weaponized against me? And until this bullshit methodology gets cracked down on, it is very likely we're going to hear more and more cases where people are getting put behind bars, at least partially because of 911 call analysis. But that is where I'm going to end talking about the stories that I wanted to get to this last week, but just didn't have the time to. And actually, on that note, before we jump into next week with a brand new Monday Philip DeFranco show tomorrow, I think it's important we take a look back at the other news we did cover. And we're going to do that with some help from our buddy, Zaid Tabani. Zaid?
Hey. Let's go. I used to always dream of being verified. Then I found out all I gotta do is pay a guy. I wondered what it's like in movies by the rogue AI before Bing sold me a children's book it plagiarized. I used to wonder if it's Trump again in 24 while grand jurors in a case go on a public tour. I hear when one dries up a lake they fill a reservoir. This week's shootings are Texas, Pine Hills, and Mardi Gras. The new normal is horrifying. Your treaties keep on retiring. Cold War in an era where they fucked up what's private as bad as the climate. If someone dying they'll find them with a TikTok badge. It's that bad, like Biden versus asylum. Like I feel so lost, triple the cost. When they say they gon' make things better, I'm trying hard to keep up my guard, thinking I can make this better. Who gets the web in a national divorce? I see some nervous debates in the courts. Are we the ones to make decisions on the internet soul? I wish you had that same energy when challenging Roe. Now couples gotta give birth just to watch their kids go. You never think of consequences till the train blowing smoke and the chemicals soaked in the water where the politics float. The companies like cloud chasers killing dogs on the road for the views that they sold. So Willa's joking about the Oscars. Subway wanna get some charges. Olive oil in my coffee, but they spell my name wrong. Trying to stay strong. Don't you take no fuck ups on my story like I'm rolled off. Oh, hell no. Keep my flaws present like Spain getting trains measured. A blizzard in LA, all the water is drained Venice. They sticking with Don Lemon, those comments were still sexist. And Fox lied on elections to boost their viewer retention. What's up? Hard times come from a big life, like how good movies always tend to come from a big strike. YouTube CEO or not, fuck all my dislikes. I'ma buy all of my dips till the stock rise. Come on, like I feel so lost, triple my cost. They say they gon' make things better. I'm trying hard to keep up my guard, thinking we can make this better. Hey yo, shout out to all you beautiful bastards for supporting Freestyle the News over these last few weeks. It's been good, life is good, Marvel's and evil, I'm hype as fuck, man, let's go. Check it, hey. If you see this in 10 years, make it a bestseller. If they asking if Joel dies, maybe don't tell him. If you go to Arby's to subscribe, bro, I don't get it. Like if you hiring a child to clean a meat processor. What the fuck is this, the jungle? Upton rolling in his grave, going backwards like the Saudis trying to take this cent away. I saw this fucker say, listen, child abuse is never great, but if we're thinking about the state, how much money does it save? Bitch, you the literal devil's advocate. Working in the news, I feel like a fucking masochist. Shootings every week, headlines are always plastered with Elon, Kanye, or AI did something massively fucked up. I'm bust up like missiles from Russia. China hanging with them, who trusts what? Making up a tour out of a jury indictment. Fucking up the case like drunk white girls bullying your storefront. Hold up. Okay, Wisconsin, another state election where ignorance gonna cost us. The state Supreme Court got a bunch of shit on the docket like abortion and gerrymanders, litany of these problems in one race. Kelly pro to say with all the shit is looking dangerous. Gerrymandered legislatures either stay or get remade. And plus this law from 1849 that came in after Roe v. Wade was overturned could make it so that ban will remain. Yo, this isn't a game. Can't get a milli just by hitting on the start of their frames. You gotta engage. I'm working every second they let me, and I ain't wishing on a falling star. Like Jeffrey. Ooh. Too soon. You'll find this and all the other Freestyle the News on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen. We back at it next week.